Every 4 years, we make history. We elect a president of the United States. This year's campaign was not only fought with boots on the ground, but with social networks, TV ads, and reams of voter data. Despite economic woes and skepticism about his policies, President Obama's aggressive campaign and personal popularity led him to victory. At the start, it was a crowded race.
Romney kind of outperformed a lot of the other candidates on stage, and yet some of the other candidates would kind of rise above him in the polls.
Although Mitt Romney was the presumed frontrunner for the GOP nomination, many Republicans, concerned that the former governor from Massachusetts wasn't conservative enough, were still shopping. Most of the flavor of the month candidates crashed and burned before the primaries even began.
Agency of government, yeah. I would do away with the education, commerce, and let's see, I can't. The third one I can't, sorry. Oops.
Well, the Obama administration and the Obama campaign really always felt that Mitt Romney was going to be the victor in the Republican primary, that he would emerge despite all the ups and downs. They always were focused on Mitt Romney.
Mitt Romney is going to be our nominee.
In mid-April, the Obama campaign finally had an official opponent to compete against.
Tax havens, offshore accounts, carried interest. Mitt Romney has used every trick in the book.
They wasted no time and immediately began painting Mitt Romney as a wealthy businessman disconnected from regular working people. It was the beginning of 6 months of both sides trying to differentiate themselves to the American public.
So America, God shed his grace on thee.
Having listened to President Obama deliver his stump speech literally dozens of times this year, I'm tuned into what changes from day to day, and it's kind of interesting to hear what he emphasizes. You might hear him emphasize issues that he thinks are important to women the morning after Mitt Romney has said something that the Obama campaign thinks damages Mitt Romney with women. And so you hear those little tweaks along the way that are catered to the moment and to the voters who he's speaking to on a given day.
But when it comes to a woman's right to make her own health care choices, they want to take us back to the policies more suited to the 1950s than the 21st century.
In a race where outside groups, many of whom didn't have to name their donors, could raise unlimited funds, more money was raised and spent than ever before.
There's a misconception that this is the super PAC election. In a lot of ways it is, but as much impact as the super PACs have had, we also have to look at these nonprofit groups. These are not super PACs, they're issue advocacy groups. They've spent about as much money as these super PACs have so far this year.
It's not just about the money, it's also about personality. By early summer, one of Washington's favorite parlor games, speculating on a vice presidential candidate, began in earnest. Romney had to decide between picking someone from the conservative Tea Party wing of his party or someone who represented the GOP establishment. The Romney team hoped to do both at once.
It's an honor to announce my running mate and the next Vice President of the United States, Paul Ryan.
The Romney advisors felt that that pick would really crystallize the choice between governing philosophies between the current Democratic administration and the Republicans, and what it did is it rallied the Republican base.
Obama, on the other hand, had already made a VP selection 4 years ago.
Everybody likes to joke about Joe Biden, joke about the gaffes. President Obama does it. But the reality is that he adds something to that ticket that benefits President Obama because it fills in some weaknesses in his sort of political resume.
The next big test was the conventions. These were an opportunity for both parties to define or redefine themselves. Republicans cast Romney as the protector of the small business owner.
No, because we built it.
He started the business, one he built by himself.
For the sake of the future of small business, we need to replace Barack Obama with Mitt Romney.
While Democrats cast Obama as the champion of the middle class.
When it comes to getting the middle class back to work, Mitt Romney says no.
I grew up in an America that invested in its kids and built a strong middle class.
And every semester he was determined to pay that bill right on time, even taking out loans when he fell short.
The real star of the Democratic convention was Bill Clinton, who in many ways was able to articulate the reasons for electing Barack Obama better than Barack Obama himself could.
I want to nominate a man who's cool on the outside,
but who burns for America on the inside.
Most importantly, the Democrats came out of that convention with a greater sense of why they thought it was important to reelect the president, what it was they liked about the president, and a belief that if they didn't reelect him, bad things would happen under Governor Romney.
The GOP candidates may have focused on issues, but the Twitterverse's attention was elsewhere.
I've got Mr. Obama sitting here, and I just was going to ask him a couple questions. What do you mean, shut up?
And who could blame them? It was one of many instant memes in the campaign that provided fodder for online commenters and pundits.
We've had an embarrassment of riches in that we've had all kinds of bloopers and gaffes from all sides. Romney's designated flaw is that he's an out-of-touch rich guy. So anything that he does, whether it was the taped comments about the 47%, whether it's him saying,
Ann drives a couple of Cadillacs.
When it's him saying,
I like being able to fire people who provide services to me.
whether it was the
Corporations are people, my friend.
him offering
$10,000? $10,000 bet?
Whenever those kinds of lines come out of his mouth, it makes him look out of touch. Obama has made fewer gaffes, but they've been particularly meaningful because it suggests that he may be out of touch on the economy. His remark when he said,
If you got a business, that you didn't build that.
maybe you could come up with a justification for what he was trying to say. What you were trying to say doesn't count in this business, and that gave the Republicans a very clear line. Similarly, when he stood there in the White House briefing room and said,
The private sector is doing fine.
They may be accidents, but they're accidents that point to larger truths. As Michael Kinsley famously pointed out, a gaffe in Washington is when you accidentally speak the truth.
The fact of the matter is that politicians in both political parties are going to stretch the truth if they feel it will give them a political advantage. Fact-checking has really become part and parcel of the campaign this year. I mean, you have the fact-checker column for the Washington Post, you have PolitiFact, and you have factcheck.org. And you see both campaigns throughout the year would cite the fact checkers to validate either their claims or to, particularly, to trash the other guy.
They are not true.
Completely misleading.
It's completely false.
We Irish call it malarkey.
The debates were the last opportunity for candidates to sell themselves to a large public audience.
Very often, the candidates are not debating with each other. The real opponent, I think, is the preconceptions that the voters have about them.
Romney wanted to be seen as understanding regular people and concerned with the needs of women. Obama wanted to be seen as someone who could keep his word and raise doubts about Romney's readiness for the job, particularly on foreign policy.
These three presidential debates really served as a reset button. This was never going to be a game that was going to be won by a touchdown. It was a game that was going to be won by a field goal. And in the end, both campaigns knew that they were going to have to win this thing on the ground, voter by voter.
In the final days, the national polls were as close as they could be. I mean, basically every national poll showed this to be a dead even race, and in some cases, a truly even race. But we don't pick presidents on the basis of the popular vote. In the Electoral College, the president had some advantage heading into the final days simply because he could afford to lose a few of the battleground states. Governor Romney had to win most of them.
Then, just a week before the election, Hurricane Sandy paralyzed the eastern seaboard and thrust the unlikely duo of President Obama and New Jersey Republican Governor Chris Christie into the spotlight. President Obama was able to make the race a choice about who better understood people's hopes, dreams, and fears. It was an empathy election. Mitt Romney was never able to overcome President Obama's swing state edge, despite economic numbers that suggested trouble for the incumbent.
But the nation chose another leader, and so Ann and I join with you to earnestly pray for him and for this great nation.
In the end, President Obama's victory was convincing and complete.
Tonight, more than 200 years after a former colony won the right to determine its own destiny, the task of perfecting our union moves forward.